Chapter 761. Ren Xian was dumbfounded, but at this moment, Ren Sikeng's mother was pale, and there was no trace of blood. Turning his head slowly, Ren Xian looked at his wife and said, "Suhen, tell me, what's going on? What's going on?" Ren Xian couldn't believe it, and couldn't believe it. How could Ren Sikeng not be his son? He followed his wife and fell in love with each other, and never quarreled. Even if his wife lost her legs in a car accident, he never thought of abandoning her. He couldn't imagine that his sincerity in giving would be exchanged for his wife's betrayal. "Woohoo!" Ren Xian's wife cried bitterly. Tell me what's going on." Ren Xian's eyes were scarlet at the moment, like a beast, shaking his wife's shoulders desperately. Normally, he would never treat his wife like this, but at this moment, he couldn't control himself. Ren Xian's wife cried bitterly and said slowly, "He is right, he is indeed not your biological son. I'm sorry for you, I'm sorry for the Ren family." Hearing the confirmation from his wife's mouth, Ren Xian couldn't hold on any longer and sat down on the ground. The whole person became dumb, and his eyes were full of disbelief. Why? 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 I'm so good to you, why? Ren Xian couldn't understand why he gave his wife the best love and why his wife betrayed him. Seeing her husband's appearance, Ren Xian's wife cried even more sadly, "I'm sorry, I didn't betray you, it's your good friend Sun Cai, you drank too much at home that day, he took the opportunity to defile me, I resisted, I shouted, but you were drunk and unconscious, and he succeeded in the end. I was afraid of losing you, so I didn't dare to tell you. Later, I found out that I was pregnant. I wanted to abort the child, but you found out that I was pregnant. The meticulous care of the whole family, so that I have no chance to destroy this evil species. I'm sorry, I was wrong, I should have told you then, so many things won't happen now, I was really wrong." Ren Xian's wife desperately apologized and admitted her mistake. Ren Xian was stupid, like a wooden man, sitting on the ground motionless. Now he finally understands why his wife keeps preventing him from handing over the Ren family property to Ren Sikeng. It turns out that she knows that Ren Sikeng is not Ren Sikeng at all. The flesh of the home. Suddenly, Ren Xian's eyes widened, and he fainted. "Husband!" Seeing this, Ren Xian's wife shouted mournfully, and finally fainted. Seeing this, Sun Simiao hurriedly stepped forward to check, and found that both of them were just in a hurry, and there was no serious problem, so he was relieved. And David listened to the family affairs of the Ren family and felt a lot of sigh. A happy and loving family may have been destroyed from this moment. When Ren Sikeng saw his parents fainted, not only was he not worried, but he laughed and said, "Die, you all die, only in this way, everything in the Ren family will be mine." Ren Sikeng fell into a madness and said to Ning Yu, "Kill all the people here, as long as I get the Ren family's property, I will fulfill everything I promised you," and many of the Ren family have been dug up from the ancient tomb. "Baby, whatever you like, take whatever you want." Ren Sikeng's eyes were full of murderous intent. He wanted to kill everyone here, so that no one would know his true identity and no one would stop him from inheriting the Ren family's property. "No problem." A cruel smile appeared on Ning Yu's face, and then with a wave of his hand, the door of the villa closed tightly. Seeing Ning Yu like that, David smiled lightly, "Are you sure you can kill us?" Chapter 762. Haha, killing you people is like crushing ants, don't think you can kill Xia Chao, you know some Taoism, you are a genius, and you have the ability to fight with me. In my eyes, you and others are the same. Ants. Ning Yu laughed loudly, and then moved his hands constantly, only to see a series of magic seals bursting in the air. The whole hall was filled with invisible mana, and the sinister ghosts also showed their faces. Soon, a magic formation was visible to the naked eye in the hall, and chains of shackles crisscrossed, blocking all the way out. This is the trapped dragon formation of my Tianluo pavilion. Those who are trapped in the formation will never be able to escape. You should die. Ning Yu let out a loud shout, and saw that the shackles were burning with raging fire, and the whole hall was extremely hot in an instant. An invisible force enveloped everyone, and countless evil spirits gathered together, and these evil spirits continued to strengthen those ghosts. The land of the 7 evil spirits is really powerful. David looked at those hideous ghosts and sighed. Mr. Chen, let's hold him back, you can find a way to go. Lin Tianhu and Chifeng drew their weapons and stood in front of David with a resolute expression. Xiaolan hid behind David and looked at the rampant Ning Yu. Suddenly, with a wave of her hand, a poisonous insect the size of her pinky headed towards Ning Yu. These poisonous insects are extremely poisonous. As long as they touch them, they will poison and die. Xiaolan has been in Miao village for 20 years, and she is very familiar with these poisonous insects. Buzzing! Dozens of poisonous insects headed towards Ning Yu. As long as one of them could land on Ning Yu, it would be considered a success. Humph! The mere poisonous insects want to hurt me too. Ning Yu snorted coldly and waved it casually. Suddenly, a large net appeared in front of Ning Yu, and all the poisonous insects were blocked by the big net. Immediately afterwards, flames ignited on the big net, and after those poisonous insects touched the flames, they were burned to death and fell to the ground. After killing those poisonous insects, the big net in front of Ning Yu also disappeared. In the trapped dragon formation, I am the master, you don't have to waste your efforts. Ning Yu looked at the corpses of poisonous insects all over the floor with a proud expression. Xiaolan looked at the dead poisonous insects, and she felt a lot of pain in her heart. These were carefully raised by her, and now they are all dead, and Xiaolan also left the Miao village. I am afraid that these poisonous insects will never be found in the future. Lin Tianhu and Chifeng looked at each other, and they suddenly attacked Ning Yu. Lin Tianhu held a tiger-headed saber in his hand, while Chifeng held a short sword in his hand. Both of them were great masters, and they were extremely fast. They wanted to subdue Ning Yu unexpectedly. The mere master, dare to be presumptuous in front of me. Ning Yu snorted coldly, waved his hand, and the countless evil spirits instantly condensed into a rope, and then walked towards Lin Tianhu and Chifeng. Dragon bound. I saw that the rope was like a big snake, and I saw that Lin Tianhu and Chifeng were entangled, and the two were instantly controlled, and the weapons in their hands fell to the ground. As the rope got closer and closer, Lin Tianhu and Chifeng only felt that they were in difficulty with each other, and their faces became extremely pale. Seeing this, David turned his fingers into knives, an array of light shot out from David's fingers, and then cut off the ropes on Lin Tianhu and Chifeng, and the two broke free. Back up! After saving Lin Tianhu and Chifeng, David said something lightly. Lin Tianhu and Chifeng knew that the two of them were not Ning Yu's opponents at all, and they couldn't even touch others, so they could only listen to David's words and retreated behind David. You really have 2 strokes, you can actually cut off my dragon-bound rope. Ning Yu's eyes narrowed slightly, and then he moved the magic art again, communicating the power of heaven and earth so that countless evil spirits continued to gather. This is the land of 7 evil spirits, and the evil spirits are endless. Chapter 763. Countless murderous auras finally condensed into magic chains. These chains were as hard as steel, invisible and colorless, and there was no way to destroy them. This time, Ning Yu attracted more than a dozen dragon-binding ropes, tightly binding David's limbs and body, making David unable to move. And those ghosts, under the command of Ning Yu, went towards David one after another. Dozens of ghosts flew towards David with their fangs and claws, and their sharp fangs were exposed, which was very scary. David was bound by the tying dragon rope. Looking at the flying ghost, he only twisted twice, but there was no way to break free from the rope. Seeing those ghosts getting closer and closer, Ning Yu's face was full of pride. However, he did not find that these ghosts were heading towards David, and David was restrained and unable to move, but he did not show panic, but a slight arc was raised at the corner of his mouth. Those ghosts uttered harsh and terrifying screams, and then directly penetrated David's body. As soon as these ghosts touched David's body would flash a golden light, and then those ghosts would disappear. Soon, dozens of ghosts disappeared, and David, who was trapped by the long rope, was still standing there, not suffering from typhoid fever at all. At this moment, those ghosts all entered David's body, and the concentrated heart technique was running fast, constantly sucking those ghosts into the Danshan. Those ghosts screamed and wanted to break free from David's body, but there was no way to break free. The heart concentration art refines all those ghosts into spiritual power, which is stored in the Danshan. How is this going? Ning Yu's heart trembled slightly. He found that the golden light that just emerged from David's body actually contained a lot of mana, as if there was a huge magic circle running in David's body. Isn't this kid also a Taoist master? Ning Yu couldn't believe it. If David was also a Taoist master, it would be terrible. After all, David was about the same age as himself. You must know that Daoist cultivation is much more difficult than martial Dao cultivation, and in addition to hard work, the most important thing in Daoist cultivation is to have talent, to be able to comprehend the mysteries of heaven and earth, and the essence of Daoism. Obviously, David's current strength is a great master of martial arts. It is not easy to reach the strength of a great master of martial arts at this age, but if David is also a master of martial arts at the same time, it will be terrible. Dao and Wu dual cultivation, this is 1 in 10,000, a genius among geniuses. At this moment, Ning Yu's face became more and more ugly, but he did not flinch. Instead, he said something in his mouth, and the dozen or so dragon binding ropes began to shrink rapidly. More than a dozen dragon binding ropes condensed by murderous aura were tightly entangled in David. Ning Yu kept urging Fahu, and the evil spirits continued to emerge from the ground. These evil spirits continued to condense, making the dragon binding ropes thicker and thicker. Seeing that David was unable to move at the moment, Ning Yu began to show a confident smile on his face. But soon, Ning Yu's confident smile condensed on his face, and then he looked at David with wide eyes. I saw that David's body began to flash golden light again, and then the dragon binding rope, which was condensed by the evil spirit, turned into smoke and dust in an instant under the irradiation of this golden light, and was directly sucked into the body by David. For David, these evil spirits are a good resource for cultivation. Although now, in terms of David's strength, absorbing these evil spirits is a drop in the bucket, and it is not very helpful for cultivation, but mosquitoes are small and meat, and David will not miss this opportunity. Xieshu, you are evil Xiu. Ning Yu instantly understood at this moment that those ghosts couldn't hurt David, and David actually sucked the dragon-bound rope that was condensed with evil spirits into his body. Only evil cultivators could practice by absorbing yin and evil spirits. Chapter 764. Are you from the Blood Witch sect, or from the Yin-Yang sect? Ning Yu looked at David cautiously and asked. If David really belonged to these two sects, Ning Yu would not dare to kill at will. After all, these two sects are ruthless. If they really follow these two sects, they will die, and then his master will find out. To scold yourself to death. Ning Yu is now a celebrity in Tianluo Pavilion, so he has to act cautiously, and he can't delay his great future because of this. I'm not a Blood Witch sect, nor a Yin and Yang sect. If you are afraid, then kneel down obediently, maybe I can let you go. David smiled lightly. Hey, arrogant, so what if you are a real evil cultivator? Our Tianluo Pavilion is a well-known and upright, specializing in dealing with you evil cultivators. Ning Yu snorted coldly, then dispersed the trapped dragon formation, and took out a sword directly from his body. He saw that the sword's body was simple and dark, and he didn't know what material it was made of, but on the sword body, it was made of red. Some spells are drawn with cinnabar pen. This is the sword of punishing evils, which is specially designed to deal with you evil cultivators. Ning Yu said, raised the sword to his chest, condensed mana, and swiped in the air. Thorn! The air seemed to be split into a gap in an instant, and the sound of breaking wind sounded in the void, and a fierce sword chi shot out. Among them, he went towards David. Where the sword energy passed, everything was divided into two, and even the hard marble floor had a deep imprint at this moment. Click! The sword chi slashed directly on David's body. After only hearing a crisp sound, David's body was intact, but a gap was drawn in his clothes. Although the sword chi did not hurt David, the spells mixed with the sword chi were spinning around David, and the spells kept flashing red light. The Xianzong of heaven and earth is the root of all energy. Cultivating hundreds of millions of kalpas to prove my supernatural powers. Inside and outside the three realms, the Tao is the only one. The body has golden light, reflecting my body. Don't see, don't hear. Encompassing the world, nurturing the masses. Ning Yu kept chanting the incantation, the blue veins burst out on his forehead, and the sweat began to drip down. The sword energy just couldn't hurt David, and now he can only rely on those spells. As Ning Yu recited faster and faster, the spells revolved around David faster and faster, and the red light flickered brighter and brighter. Excuse the evil! Ning Yu shouted, and the spells suddenly stuck on David's body. David was personally wrapped in red light, and those spells were all branded on David like a brand. Ning Yu looked at David and found that although these spells were stuck on David's body, it didn't seem to have any effect. David didn't react at all. Ning Yu frowned slightly and quickly began to chant the incantation again. Seeing Ning Yu sweating profusely, David snorted coldly. Silly X! David's body trembled slightly, the spells on his body scattered in an instant, countless strong winds scattered, and cracks appeared in the surrounding ground. Ning Yu's pupil shrank, and with a wave of the sword of punishment in his hand, the scattered spells returned to the sword of punishment in an instant, but those spells were obviously much darker. Ning Yu looked at David in disbelief. David just resisted his sword chi, but now he has easily broken away from these spells. This is too powerful, right? This Zuxi sword is the treasure of Tianluo Pavilion. Ning Yu is very talented, so the master Ni Sidao passed the Zuxi sword to him, and also passed it on to Ning Yu, although Ning Yu has not yet mastered it. But the general evil cultivator encounters him, and only escapes for his life. He has not found the evil cultivator who is not afraid of the evil sword in his hand. Chapter 765. Who the H3LL are you? Why aren't you afraid of my sword of punishing evil? Ning Yu really couldn't understand whether David was an evil cultivator. Why wasn't he afraid of his own sword of killing evil? Why should I be afraid? David asked indifferently. Ning Yu stared at David, his teeth rattling, as if he was making up his mind. Suddenly, Ning Yu quickly slashed out several lines of sword energy, and immediately held the blade in my hand. After a light drink, with a sudden force, the sharp blade directly cut through Ning Yu's palm. In the name of blood, slay evil and avoid disaster, burn it. Ning Yu said something in his mouth, and then there was a flame on the Zuxi sword. The flame was very strange. It turned out to be a green color, like a phosphorus fire. The flame was burning very vigorously with the help of Ning Yu's blood, and there was still a little difficulty. The smell of blood continued to emanate from the evil sword. Cut! Ning Yu once again swung the Xie sword in his hand towards David, and instantly three sword chi burning with green flames slashed towards David in a surrounded situation. David, be careful, these are phosphorus fires. As long as a little bit of it gets on the body, it will burn people alive, and it can't be saved at all. Seeing this, Xiaolan hurriedly reminded David. David had long seen the strangeness of this flame, but he never thought that this Ning Yu would actually use phosphorus fire. You must know that this kind of flame is very dangerous, and if you are not careful, you will be counterattacked. Unexpectedly, this Ning Yu, seeing that David was not easy to deal with, would use such a cruel method. You all stand back! David exhorted, and then his eyes turned cold. He raised his hand and grabbed it in the air, and a sword with a cold air appeared in his hand. When the sword in David's hand appeared, everyone seemed to be frozen, especially Ning Yu, who was shocked when he saw the sword that appeared out of thin air in David's hand. "Look at how powerful my dragon-slaying sword is, or whether your sword of punishing evil is powerful." After David finished speaking, flames rose from the dragon-slaying sword, but the flames were crimson. The flame on the dragon-slaying sword exudes a temperature comparable to the sun, and instantly compares those phosphorus fires. True fire of Samadhi." Ning Yu's eyes widened, and he kept shouting, "You can actually draw true fire of Samadhi, are you a master of Taoism?" "Only a master of Taoism can draw out the true fire of Samadhi, and like an alchemist, only those who are familiar with the Taoist method and can draw out the true fire of Samadhi can refine high-level medicinal pills. Now David has actually drawn out the true fire of Samadhi, which is countless times stronger than that fire of phosphorus." Cut. David waved lightly, and the flames on the dragon-slaying sword instantly turned into fire dragons, which shot out violently, and instantly collided with the three-sword chi swung by Ning Yu. Rumbling. After a few explosion-like noises, Ning Yu's three-sword chi were instantly dissipated, and the burning phosphorus fire turned back and shrouded Ning Yu. Ning Yu's pupils suddenly enlarged, and with a desperate wave of his hands, a barrier appeared in front of him, covering Ning Yu in order to avoid being attacked by the phosphorus fire. As soon as the barrier appeared, several groups of phosphorus fires hit it, but they failed to penetrate the barrier. But when David's crimson Samadhi true fire touched the barrier, a crackling sound sounded, and then looking at the barrier, there were even cracks. Ning Yu's heart raised in his throat, and his heart was extremely frightened, and the cold sweat on his forehead never imagined that David's strength was so powerful, beyond his imagination. Wow! Finally, the barrier could not resist the impact, and finally shattered directly. Ning Yu hurriedly waved the yes sword in his hand, trying to block the splashing phosphorus fire. Chapter 766. Although most of the phosphorus fire was resisted, a small amount of phosphorus fire still fell on Ning Yu's body. The smell of burning came out, followed by the screams of Ning Yu. After the phosphorus fire touched Ning Yu's arm, it instantly burned into the body. Seeing this, Ning Yu gritted his teeth and directly picked it up with the tip of the Zuxi sword, cutting off a large piece of meat on his arm, along with the phosphorus fire. "If you don't do this, Ning Yu's arm will soon be penetrated by the phosphorus fire, forming a terrifying big hole." Seeing Ning Yu like that, I have to say that this guy is also a ruthless man, and he doesn't hesitate to attack him. "What else do you have? Just use it, or you won't have a chance for a while." David held the dragon-slaying sword and said coldly. Ning Yu frowned slightly, "You want to kill me?" "Of course, can only you kill me, can't I kill you?" David felt that what Ning Yu said was a little funny. "You can't kill me, I'm from Tianluo Pavilion, my master is Ni Sideo, if you kill me, my master will definitely avenge me, even if you escape to the ends of the earth, it's useless." There was some panic on Ning Yu's face. As a genius, he didn't want to die like this. His Taoism has not yet been completed, and he still has a bright future. "Who your master is, it's none of my business, even if your master seeks revenge on me, you won't be able to see it." After David finished speaking, the dragon-slaying sword in his hand stabbed directly towards Ning Yu's chest. Seeing that David was determined to kill himself, Ning Yu was so frightened that his legs softened, and he actually knelt to the ground. "No, don't kill me, please don't kill me." Ning Yu was so frightened that he knelt down and begged for mercy. The genius of Tianluo Pavilion actually knelt down and begged for mercy at this moment. If this spread out, the entire Tianluo Pavilion would be ridiculed. But at this time, Ning Yu couldn't care about this, he just wanted to live. Even if Ning Yu knelt down and begged for mercy, David didn't show any pity, because he knew that if it was him who failed at the moment, no one would give him a chance to live. David is not a good man and a woman, and he has only one way to deal with the enemy, and that is to kill. But just when David's dragon-slaying sword was about to pierce Ning Yu's chest, Xiaolan suddenly stopped David from the side. David, you can't kill him, you don't know the horror of Tianluo Pavilion, let alone how powerful his master is. If you really kill him, Tianluo Pavilion will hunt you down at all costs. Your current enemy is it still less. Xiaolan persuaded David. Xia Chao was just killed. At this time, Xia Hodun, the sect master of Tianwu men, was looking for David everywhere. If David was killing Ning Yu at this moment, with David's current strength, how could he survive Tianwu men and Tianluo Pavilion? What about the pursuit of the two major organizations? I have many enemies, so I don't care about one more Tianluo Pavilion. David's face was cold. Whether it is Tianwu men or Tianluo Pavilion, David doesn't care. As the saying goes, soldiers will block the water and cover the soil. David knows that there are many people watching him. He killed Qin Xiaolan, although it was a fair fight in the arena. But he knew that the Qin family would not stop there. There is also the Long family, who has never met, who has already issued an order to kill. David is also in danger at this moment, but the Long family only knows that the former eldest master of the Long family is still alive, but they do not know the specific who, so David will have this short-lived peace. If the Long family knew that David was the eldest young master of the Long family, then it would be time for the storm to strike. You're not afraid, but what about the people around you? Do you have the ability to protect them forever? You always have to think about them. Xiaolan didn't want David to offend the entire Tianluo Pavilion in order to kill a Ning Yu, which was unwise. Chapter 767. At this time, Sonia's sweet smile flashed in David's mind, and the kind smile of his parents flashed. Their relatives have always been David's weakness. David slowly put away the dragon-slaying sword, but when Ning Yu saw this, he got up in a hurry, turned his head and ran out. Ning Yu, take me away, you take me away. Seeing that Ning Yu was about to escape, Ren Sikeng hurried forward and hugged Ning Yu's thigh. Roll! Ning Yu kicked Ren Sikeng away. He was unable to protect himself, and finally had a chance to survive. Where would he manage Ren Sikeng? Ren Sikeng was so frightened that his face was extremely pale at this moment, his whole body was trembling, and he wanted to slip out. It was just that Lin Tianhu and Qi Feng stopped him just as he reached the door. At this moment, both Ren Xian and his wife were awakened by Sun Simiao's treatment, but their expressions were obviously much older. Dad, Mom, I was wrong, please forgive me, I will honor you in the future. Seeing that his parents were awake, Ren Sikeng hurried over and knelt on the ground. Ren Xian looked at the former son in front of him, his face flushed with anger, and he kicked out fiercely. Ren Xian's wife also had a complicated face, her eyes were slightly closed, and she didn't say a word. She didn't know what to say. Although Ren Sikeng was not Ren Xian's son, she was really her flesh and blood. Mr. Chen, thank you, if it weren't for you, our family would be doomed. Ren Xian walked up to David and said gratefully. Patriarch Ren is being polite. I will use people's money to eliminate disasters for others. Since I want your things, of course I will help you. If Patriarch Ren is still living here, I can help you remove the formation, but it's just that it will take some time for this land of 7 evil spirits to be restrained. David said to Ren Xian. Don't bother Mr. Chen anymore, don't live anymore, don't live here anymore. Ren Xian shook his head and sighed slightly, I will never be here again, I will never come. Seeing Ren Xian like that, David was helpless. After all, it was hard for a happy family to suffer such a change suddenly. It's just that it's hard for an honest official to cut off housework. David knew that it would be useless to stay, so he followed Ren Xian to leave and left with Sun Simiao. As for how Ren Xian will deal with Ren Sikeng and his wife, those are beyond David's control. After leaving the Ren family, David followed Sun Simiao directly to Wu Meng's office. At this time, dozens of martial arts masters from Jiangnan and Jiangbei have gathered here. These people are waiting for David and respect David as the leader of the Wu Meng Alliance. With David's strength and influence, after David sits as the leader of the Wu Meng League, he will definitely be able to make the Wu Meng Alliance in Jiangnan and Jiangbei to a higher level. Mr. Chen. Seeing David coming, everyone got up one after another. Mr. Chen. At this time, an old man with a grey beard came, followed by a young man. Old Bai, why are you here? David was surprised when he saw the old man. The person who came was Bai Ziashan, the head of the Bai family in Kyoto, and the young man was Bai Zhantang. David did not expect that the people from the Bai family would come over. Mr. Chen has been appointed as the leader of the Wu Meng League of Jiangnan and Jiangbei provinces. Of course, I will come to congratulate. Bai Ziashan smiled slightly. David smiled helplessly. Sit down first. After David asked Bai Ziashan to sit down, he continued, I'm not yet qualified to be the leader of this alliance, and I don't have the time. I still have a lot of things to deal with. Mr. Chen, in the entire Jiangnan and Jiangbei provinces, where is there anyone who is stronger than you? Although your qualifications are low, the martial arts world respects strength. Mr. Chen is the leader of the alliance, and our Bai family will also support it. Bai Ziashan came here this time to support David. After all, with the influence of the Bai family, he can still speak in Jiangnan and Jiangbei. Chapter 768. I do have a lot of things to deal with, and I don't plan to be the leader of any Wu Meng alliance. I hope to devote more energy to cultivation. David said lightly. Seeing this, Bai Ziashan didn't try to persuade him. After all, David is the leader of the alliance, only he has the final say, who can force him to fail. Mr. Chen, in addition to congratulating you this time, there is one more thing I need to remind you of. Qin Xiaotian is looking for his second brother and wants to avenge Qin Xiaolin. Then Qin Xiaoshan's second brother went to Qin many years ago. The clan sect, I heard that it has entered the ancestral hall, and its strength is definitely not low. Bai Ziashan reminded David in a low voice. It's okay, what should come will always come. David smiled lightly, but did not take it to heart. It's a blessing, not a disaster, it's a disaster that can't be avoided. Since there is a dead end with the Qin family, let them go. Seeing that David didn't care, Bai Ziashan couldn't say anything, so he could only say, Mr. Chen's direction, if the Qin family is doing anything, I will send someone to notify Mr. Chen as soon as possible. Thank you, Mr. Bai. David followed Bai Ziashan and clasped his fists. Mr. Chen, it's almost time now, look. Sun Simiao looked at the time, and reminded from the side. David glanced at his watch, stood up and said to the people in the martial arts of the two provinces who were sitting, everyone, thank you for your love for me, but I think that my qualifications are too low, and I can't afford the position of the leader of the martial arts alliance. You'd better find someone else. Seeing that David refused without hesitation, everyone was slightly taken aback. In their opinion, this Wu Meng alliance leader is a position that everyone in the martial arts world is very envious of, but not everyone has the opportunity. I didn't expect David to have this opportunity, but he didn't want it, so he just refused. Mr. Chen, if you are not qualified to be the leader of the entire Jiangnan and Jiangbei provinces, then no one is qualified. Yes, we only recognize Mr. Chen. Mr. Chen is young, but he can kill Wu Zong, that is a genius. Mr. Chen, don't hesitate, we hope that under the leadership of Mr. Chen, the martial arts world in Jiangnan and Jiangbei can be carried forward. Many martial arts masters persuaded David. The reason why they chose David was because of their own interests. After all, Jiangnan Jiangbei set up a martial arts alliance in the name of David and made David the leader of the alliance. Then the resources behind David would definitely tend to be in the two provinces of Jiangnan and Jiangbei. Just like the Bai family in Kyoto, if David is the leader of the alliance, the Bai family will definitely support the Wu Meng alliance in these two provinces. Everyone, I really don't have the time to be the leader of this alliance, so I would like to ask you to hire Gao Ming, but as a native of Horindal, if there is anything wrong with the martial arts alliance between Jiangnan and Jiangbei, I will do my best to help. David declined. No matter what, he would not sit on the leader of the Wu Meng alliance, wasting energy and time too much. Moreover, David is a cultivator, and the people who follow these martial arts circles are also different, and the direction of cultivation is different. Just as David's words fell, a sudden angry shout came in from outside. "Who is David? Come out and die for me!" An angry shout was like a thunderbolt on the ground, and the whole house was buzzing, and everyone's eardrums were almost shattered. David's brows were slightly wrinkled. From this angry shout, he could tell that he was very strong in dealing with them, at least the strength of Wu Zong. "Damn, who is yelling at Mr. Chen outside?" Someone stood up and walked out. Others also followed them out. After all, some people were disrespectful to David in this place, but they did not see the martial alliance that the two provinces had just established. The crowd rushed out and saw a few people standing outside. The leader was a middle-aged man with a murderous look in his eyes, and beside the middle-aged man, there was a young man covered in blood. Chapter 769. Behind these two people, followed by a few people holding a machete, one by one looked alert. "Who the fkook are you? Dare to disrespect Mr. Chen?" Someone yelled at the group of people cursingly. The middle-aged man took a stern look, and suddenly a black shadow flashed past, and the martial arts expert who spoke immediately fell to the ground, his eyes wide open, and there was a thin wound on his neck. Seeing this scene, everyone took a deep breath. You must know that those who can participate in the martial arts alliance can also be ranked in the Jiangnan and Jiangbei provinces. The person who just opened his mouth, although he has just broken through the realm of the master, he was a great master, but he was also a great master, and he was killed without a response. "If you don't want to die, get out of here and let David come out to see me." The middle-aged man's eyes swept across the crowd, and the terrifying murderous aura instantly made everyone stunned on the spot. One by one seemed to have knives on their necks, and no one dared to move, not moving. "Good man, I'm Sun Simiao, the master of Yaoang's mansion. Can I ask, who are you? Why are you looking for Mr. Chen?" Sun Simiao relied on the Bai family behind the Yaoang mansion, so he tried his best to calm down and took a step forward to ask. "Go away," the middle-aged man spit out a word, and Sun Simiao's whole body seemed to be hit hard, and was thrown out by a force, and fell heavily to the ground. "I repeat, let David come out, or you will all die." The murderous aura on the middle-aged man instantly increased a bit. Feeling this terrifying murderous aura, some of the many people in the Wu Meng League couldn't bear it and sat down on the ground. "Don't you feel ashamed?" the dignified Tian Wumen's sect master, in the realm of Wuzong, showing off his power in front of a group of great masters. At this time, David slowly walked out from the inside. Lin Tianhu and Chifeng followed closely on both sides. Xiaolan and Bai Xiaoshan's grandfather and grandson also followed, but everyone's faces were very solemn. After hearing David's words, everyone's expressions changed dramatically. It turned out that the other party was Wu Zong. No wonder his strength was so terrifying. However, David was the one who killed Wu Zong, so Qin Xiaolan was not Wu Zong, nor was he killed by David, so after David came out, everyone was not so afraid. "Sect Master Xia, this guy is David, who killed your son Xia Chao, and the girl behind him is Xiao Lan from Miao village." The young man beside Xiahedun saw David come out, and his eyes were full of anger. This person is none other than Ning Yu, who was just defeated by David. David was stopped by Xiaolan and let him go. This guy did not escape, but secretly informed Xiahedun and came together to seek revenge for David. "Ning Yu, you shameless, ungrateful thing, just now David let you go, you dare to come back to take revenge." Xiaolan glared at Ning Yu and cursed loudly. Stop talking nonsense, it's all thanks to him that I've become like this, and today I'm going to let you all die. Ning Yu's face was hideous, and his eyes were full of murderous intent. If you fight for a while, you will find an opportunity to escape, these two will join forces, I'm not sure. David remained calm and whispered to a few people around him. If it is just as I had done, David has the blessing of the dragon-slaying sword, but he is not afraid, but now with that Ning Yu, the outcome is unpredictable. Although there are a lot of people here, the strongest one is no more than the 5th grade Grandmaster, and if he starts his hand for a while, he won't be able to help at all. So David can only let them escape first, and then he will find a chance, otherwise none of them will be able to escape. Mr. Chen, we block these people, you run away first, it doesn't matter if we die, you can't have an accident. Lin Tianhu said firmly. Chapter 770. As David's subordinate, although Lin Tianhu's strength is not strong, he will not leave David to escape. Even if you know it's death, you have to fight. Mr. Chen, I am very satisfied to have worked with you for so long. If there is an afterlife, I am willing to continue to follow Mr. Chen around. Qi Feng also said with a resolute expression. After finishing speaking, Qi Feng and Lin Tianhu looked at each other, both of them were determined to die, even if they could only delay for a few seconds, they had to buy time for David to escape. Nonsense, David frowned slightly, I let you go first, I naturally have a way to escape, if you stay, it's just to add a burden to me. David rarely gets angry with Lin Tianhu and Qi Feng, but this time, his tone was extremely severe. Lin Tianhu and Qi Feng looked at David like that, they were silent, they didn't know what to do. I'm not leaving, at this time, Xiaolan, who was behind David, said with a guilty face, if I hadn't stopped you from killing that Ning Yu, this kind of thing would not have happened, since the matter was caused by me. Get up, I will never leave. Xiaolan regretted it very much at this time. If she didn't stop her at that time, Ning Yu would not be able to survive, and there would be no chance to find Xiahedun. Now that things have become like this, Xiaolan is very guilty. If David has 3 strengths and 2 weaknesses, she is afraid that she will not forgive herself. Mr. Chen, we won't leave either, it's a big deal to spare my old bones. Bai Xiaoshan also said firmly. David saw that it was impossible for a few people to escape first, so he could only smile helplessly, but he was still a little moved. Don't think about escaping, none of you can escape. Xiahedun seemed to see David's intention and sneered. Master of Xiamen, I am Bai Xiaoshan, the head of the Bai family in Kyoto, I don't know if I can. Before Bai Xiaoshan finished speaking, he saw Xiahedun raise his hand. For the sake of your Bai family, you can leave, if you want to plead for this kid, it's impossible, even if I come here, I can't save him. When Bai Xiaoshan heard this, his face turned red and white, and the other party didn't sell his face at all. Old Bai, life and death are uncertain, you don't have to ask him. After David finished speaking, the dragon-slaying sword in his hand appeared instantly. Good boy. Today I will use your blood to pay homage to my son. After finishing speaking, Xiahedun's body filled with a terrifying aura, and then he stepped out, a huge coercion swept in like a gust of wind. Many people couldn't bear the pressure and retreated one after another. On the other hand, David gritted his teeth, and the crimson flame rose from the dragon-slaying sword in his hand, and slashed at Xiahedun with one sword. This sword contains all the power of David. Xiahedun is Wuzong. Even if David has the dragon-slaying sword in his hand, he does not dare to be careless. After all, he had just fought with Ning Yu, and David's strength had not fully recovered. At this moment, following Xiahedun, he could only go all out. Xiahedun frowned slightly. He didn't expect David to be so strong at such an age. Xiahedun, who was originally confident, now threw a punch. This punch instantly caused a ripple in the air, followed by a loud noise. I saw David's sword slashed above the ripples, and the whole person was directly shocked and flew out. The huge anti-shock force made David's mouth go numb, and the hand holding the dragon-slaying sword was constantly shaking. Everyone was shocked when they saw this scene. At this moment, everyone could see that David was the opponent of Ziahudun. Ziahudun also took 2 steps back, rubbed his fist, and said with a bit of fiery in his eyes, "It really is a precious sword. When I kill you, this sword is mine."